Welcome to Tips for the Transition, where we have deep, meaningful conversations about life. We talk about how significant changes like divorce, grief, and career change can affect us, our family, our relationships, and our work, and how to move beyond them. I'm your host, Maria Tomás-Keegan, certified career and life coach for women, and I'm here to support you through the messy seasons of life so you can answer big questions like who am I now and how do I move on from here? If you're ready to consider new options, be inspired, and meet incredible women who are on this life journey with us, you're in the right place. You'll find something in each episode to give you hope and encourage you to move from panic to powerful, from rocky to resilient, and from upside down to right side up. This is Tips for the Transition. Hello, hello. I'm so happy you're here. Thanks for joining us on today's podcast. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, your host. I am a career and life coach for professional women. Now, there are a couple of things that I love about working with women who are in corporate. The first is that I love to help you create a life and career that fulfills you because you don't deserve to stay stuck where you don't belong. And secondly, I love to introduce you to fabulous women who are on a similar mission. My inspiring guests are role models and resources for the rest of us to help you explore different career transition approaches, practices, and tips. So, if something in this episode rings a bell with you, please check the show notes below. Learn how you can get in touch with us to connect or subscribe or send us a comment if you would like. We love to see the comments. So, question. Have you ever created a dream or vision board? And have you ever felt disappointed that the dreams you put on it never materialized? You're not alone. I'm in this camp. That's happened to me before. And we're going to talk about how what you've created with great hope and passion might be holding you back from making it happen. My guest, Jenn Trepeck, has been described as a force of nature in the wellness space, and she's been recognized as one of Podcast Magazine's 40 Under 40. She's an optimal health coach, a podcaster, and a business consultant. And after graduating from the University of Michigan Ross School of Business, Jenn founded her company, Better Life Now, while working full-time in hedge funds. Then, after more than a decade of building her private practice as a side hustle, Jenn leaped out of the corporate world and into full-time self-employment. And that's when she launched Salad with a Side of Fries podcast. I love the name of that. She's empowering a larger audience through her podcast to achieve optimal health. And she helps aspiring wellness warriors, she calls them, to break into the health world. And she mentors entrepreneurs to get started or to level up. So I can't wait to talk with Jenn about how your dream board might be limiting you. So welcome, Jenn. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm excited about this topic, especially because I know I've created dream boards almost every year. And we're coming into that time of year when people have dream board parties and they're getting ready to put their visions on paper in the form of pictures and words so that they can make things happen. So it's really, really popular for a lot of people. I'd love to hear your experience around creating vision boards.
Yeah. So I think my first true vision board was 2007. I want to say it was one of those things, like you were saying, there was this party. We all got together. There were stacks of magazines and poster boards or papers. And we all spent sort of hours listening to inspirational music and cutting things out of the papers to then, the magazines and things, to then paste them on the poster board or whatever. I remember I ended up doing mine in a binder. I don't know. It was like those were the office supplies I had. And I was like, poster board, not so practical in my New York City apartment. Um, so, you know, it was fine. And then it sort of became the thing that was just there in the background. And I like sometimes looked at it, sometimes didn't. It kind of felt like, as you said, the things on there weren't necessarily actually happening. And then it was like, what do I need this for? And I just kept going in the day to day of my life.
Yeah, I think that's an experience that many of us have. We're told, create the dream board, put a lot of your hopes and dreams on it in pictures that represent, right? Words that represent how you want to feel or what you want to think. So, why do you say then that dream boards can hold us back?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I think we pick these pictures and we put them on the board and we're like, yes, this is the house with the pillars out front, right? Like we're looking for this house. And then things show up and we go, that's not the house because that one has 4 pillars and this one had 2. I don't think this is it. Right? Like we get so attached to the details of what we've put on our vision board. And one of my mentors years ago used to say, stop stepping over stacks of money to pick up pennies. So I
Oh,
think, right? We have our eye on what we think this is going to look like, and we don't see what's actually showing up in front of us. Because I believe for most of us, what's actually going to happen is so much bigger and better than what's on that board. But because we've put that photo there, we think that's what it's going to be and that's the biggest it could be. And it becomes the limiting factor rather than the jumping off point.
oh, that's so good. Two things. It
Yeah.
becomes the limiting factor rather than the jumping off point. And stop stepping, I love this. Stop stepping over stacks of money to pick up pennies. What an image that conjures for
Right.
me.
I have chills as you're saying it back to
I,
me.
I do too. I do too. I just got goosies all over my body.
Yes.
That's such a powerful concept, and it's a great metaphor for
And
what we often do. We get stuck. I use that word a lot with my clients. We get stuck on the image that we cut out of the magazine and paste on our board, and we think that's it. That's it. That's what I want. And when something else happens that could be
mhm.
better or different, we we ignore it. We're not open to the possibility that there could be something better.
Right. Or that this is a stepping stone to get to that thing that we put on the vision board. You know,
Yeah, that
the
could be,
I
right?
I really concrete example. I've partnered with an organization in New York called Flavors of New York. And we go into restaurants. It's part of helping restaurants and small businesses come back from the pandemic. And we go to these restaurants, we film. It's typically me or another host and this one guy who does the videos. So he was looking for more people to do the videos. Somebody he knows, their son had a very somewhat similar idea of wanting to do some videos in restaurants and create, a YouTube channel. So the person I work with said, join us for a day, see what we do. And we had this conversation of like, you could do this. You can take, it doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be this video. You can be the next video person, or if you want to be on camera, right? And we're like, take this formula and go practice with it and go wherever you want, do the things. And he said no, because it wasn't what he had in his head. In his head, it was going to be just him. It was going to be, he was going to figure out how to do it. And it was like, this was actually a massive learning opportunity and huge possibility to sort of hitch your wagon to something to get the ball rolling. And he wasn't willing to go down that road because it wasn't what he had in his head of him alone in this restaurant.
Yeah. 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 So, and I think we all do that to some degree, right? And
Mhm.
I think creating vision boards, if we're not creating them with the intention that they're just a, well, you say a jumping off point.
Yep.
It's a representation of what it is we want and how it is we want to feel.
Well, that's just it, right? That you just touched on exactly how we want to shift it,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, okay, let's get into that. What do you suggest instead?
Yeah. So you just touched on it, and it's about how we want to feel.
Right.
So I was building my business on the side. I was working full time in very intense environments. I wanted to feel a sense of autonomy and ownership over my time. I wanted peace in my day. I wanted ease and joy and everything I worked on. Well, I never had my podcast on a vision board, right? It came to be because it seemed like something fun that I could do when I left my full-time job, because I also don't know what to do with, free time. But the point being, it by connecting to what I'm looking for is ease and joy and freedom, then anything that showed up that felt that way was a yes. So it wasn't about how many clients do I have? What, is this the handbag or the airplane or, right, the apartment, whatever it was. It was more about, does this feel like ease and joy and freedom? Yes, then it's a yes. And I'll see what happens next. Because the other thing that I really came to learn is that nothing is permanent. If
Ah,
we make a choice and it doesn't, pan out, or it doesn't feel like we thought it was going to feel, we get to choose again.
that's right.
And every time we just keep choosing the next thing and choosing the next thing. And however it works out is exactly how it's supposed to be. And we learn something from each of those pieces. But I think if we're only ever connecting to the concrete of what's on that vision board, we're potentially missing the things that are showing up in front of us that are trying to get us there.
Yeah, so I I did a vision board once that had no pictures on it.
Mhm.
And it was the most, I'm going to call it, successful vision board I had ever, because I wasn't attaching to the images that, might have been a road trip I wanted to take.
Mhm.
Instead, so this was an experiment on my part. Instead, I put words that I thought about the road trip.
Yeah.
I thought about the the family activities that I wanted to do, and then I thought about how they would make me feel if I or when I did them. And those are the
Exactly.
words I put on the board. So I love this idea because so often we truly get just mired in this idea that I want to go to Paris. So you put a picture of the Eiffel Tower on your board, and if you got an opportunity to be in Rome,
Hmm.
well, you know what? Rome and Paris are just a train ride away. So
Exactly.
if you got to get to Rome, but if Paris was on the picture on your board and you said, no, 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 I can't afford to go to both places, so I'm going to wait till I can go to Paris.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's and staying open to the possibilities and staying open to the idea that something can stepping stone, you said, something can lead you to where you really want to be.
Exactly. And I think so often along those lines, when we're looking for that end thing, we're looking for what that picture was. To your point of remaining open, we don't even necessarily see what's actually showing up in front of us. And what if the thing that showed up in front of us is leading us to something that's so much bigger, right? What if it wasn't just the trip to Paris, but living there for a year,
Oh my.
right? But,
Yeah.
and we think, oh, I just want to go to Paris. Well, what more is out there? If when we make that vision board, we're limited by what we can actually envision. And so, again, like something could be so much bigger than what's even on our mind right now. One of my mentors, a different mentor, used to say, never stop dreaming. You'll never be bigger than your dreams, or dream big. You'll never be bigger than your dreams. And it's this same idea where
Yeah.
what if it's so much bigger than that? And what happens when we then put the bigger picture on the dream board? Our subconscious mind turns on
Yeah.
and that doubt turns in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We put that
Yeah.
bigger picture on there. We think, oh, it's not this new car. What if we put it on there as me owning a plane? And then the back of your mind is like, you don't really want a plane. What would you do with a plane? If we
Or
have,
that'll
yeah,
never happen.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then if that turns on, right, the subconscious mind, the doubt turns on, it
Yeah.
will in fact never happen. And there
Yeah.
are things that we can do, right? The trick to that is to understand intellectually the path from where you are to that thing so that our logical mind can connect those dots. But if we aren't there, if we haven't thought through that process, if we're not really thinking through what the path is to get from here to there, and maybe the path is going to look different than what you think it is, right? Then it's really hard to manage that doubter in the back of your
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. Oh, the tricks our minds can play on us, right? To keep
Exactly.
us playing small, right? And it's there to support us, keep us safe, but it also keeps us limited very often. All
Absolutely.
right. So dream boards are connected to this idea of manifesting. What other principles play into this conversation, and what and play into your suggested alternative to a dream board with the feelings rather than the images?
Yeah. So it's interesting, I feel like sort of what was the movie with all about manifesting? I keep wanting to say The Purpose, but that wasn't
The
The Secret.
secret. The
Thank you.
secret.
The Secret. I feel like there was some magical things about The Secret, right? It got a lot of us thinking about these pieces, but it fell short of some of the really actionable tools. And I've spent the last 3 years really learning and digging into some of these other spiritual principles and laws of the universe, right? So, manifesting is really the law of cause and effect, giving and receiving. So if what we're looking for is money flowing to us, right? I am a money magnet, might be that mantra we're saying. How are you giving money? Are you always asking for the discount? How are we giving what we're looking to receive? If what we want on our vision board, right, is ease and joy and freedom, what are the things we do on a daily basis to create the ease and joy and freedom? What is the work that feels that way? What are the activities that feel that way? Recognizing when they're showing up, right? A lot of times, one of the biggest things that we can do to sort of improve or increase our magnetism is acts of goodwill. So it doesn't, sure, you could give to a charity. It also could be holding the door open for the person behind you when you're walking out of a coffee shop or out of a store, right? It could be letting the other person merge into a lane if you're driving down the street. How can we be giving what it is that we're looking to receive? So small things are part of creating what we're looking for. And the other side is to recognize too, if something shows up that isn't what we wanted it to be, to look at ourselves and say, how am I creating that? What do I need to potentially do differently so that the outcome the next time is more aligned with what I'm looking for? A lot of times I think the vision board is all the outcome focus, and the real work and the real feelings and the real things of what we're looking for are the process. And so it can be somewhat of a disconnect. So the more we can connect to ourselves and the energy and, the giving and receiving and how we're showing up to create and manifest the feelings that we're looking for.
So I think we keep coming back to this, creating what it is we want, not in necessarily materially, but in how we feel about it when we get it.
Yep.
And thinking about it, the feelings as though you've got it already. It's here. It's
Yep.
already here. That is a concept that I think is hard for a lot of people, myself included, to remember that, when I'm writing a vision, that I'm writing it in the present tense as though it's already happened. I've
Yep.
got it. I'm here now. This is what I this is how I feel. This is where I am. This is who I'm with. This is what we're saying. This is how we're feeling. That's it's hard for a lot of people to even I've met some people. My very best friend is like this. It's hard for her to envision anything at all because what she has is she's so stuck in it.
Yeah.
So it's really it takes practice. It
And a
really takes.
willingness.
You gotta want it. That's right. You've got to want things to be different, and in order for them to be different, you have to be different, right? The actions you take need to be different.
And it's about, I think, asking the question, what if?
Yeah.
What if it actually didn't have to be this hard? We may not know how to make it not as hard on a daily basis, but what if it didn't have to be this hard?
Mm.
What could happen then?
And what could I do to make it easier?
Yeah, I mean, that
How,
sometimes might feel a little
how do I have to
heavier.
be? Just how do I have to be for it to be easier?
Yeah. And aware of our own reaction, right, to the things that feel challenging and like they're showing up. And
Yeah.
sometimes, sure, we're so caught up in the day to day and what has to get done and what's on that to do list, right? So, how can we even remind ourselves to pause for a second? I know we'll get to tips and things, but pause for a second and recognize the little things that are going your way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it's not that they're not there, it's just that we're not looking at it because a lot of the other stuff is a lot louder.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It kind of takes over. Because we haven't stepped back. We're stepping into it rather than stepping back and trying to be the objective observer for a bit, taking a deep breath and seeing how you want to respond to it instead of reacting.
Mhm.
Okay, so where does a person go from here? What do you recommend when someone is frustrated with, um, maybe they're asking themselves the question, why isn't this happening for me? I've done all the right things on my vision board. Why is it not happening? What I want is it's just not materializing. Or someone might be in a job that no longer makes them happy and they want something different. Why is that not
Mhm.
coming true for me? What do you recommend?
Yeah, well, I think the first piece for all of us to recognize is that nothing stays the same unless we decide it's gonna stay the same, right? So it's possible that what we actually want has shifted, right? We might actually say, all these things I put on my vision board, it's not really where my heart's at anymore. We gotta change it, right? Let's reconnect. Let's go back to the drawing board. Again, I think focusing on the feelings of how we want to experience every day. And then looking at ourselves to say, where and when do I already experience that? Is it when I'm with this group of people? Is it when I'm working on that project? Right? Is it when I'm alone going for a walk by the water? When do we experience that already in our daily lives? What might need to exist then to feel more of that? So sometimes we can also then take a step and go back to that vision board that we created and say, okay, why did I put that picture on there? So on one of mine that I created, I had this picture where the view was from a podium. So there was a microphone and a whole bunch of chairs, right? And it was an empty auditorium. But it looked like, right, it's sort of what you would see if you were standing at the podium. I'm not doing a ton of public speaking. But when I created that vision board, I had no idea. My podcast was never on my radar. Now I go back and look at it and I'm like, oh, it's actually happening. I am actually doing it. It didn't look like that. It
Right.
looked like this. But the feeling that had me put that photo on there is what's happening. So sometimes it's about going back to that drawing board, literally going back to that vision board and saying, why did I put that on there? And where is that showing up now? Because 9 times out of 10, we think it's not working because the other stuff is really loud, and it is actually happening already. And we can create a new vision board connecting to those feelings and the emotions, and then let that be the barometer from which we evaluate what is showing up. It's sort of like we want to create the thing and then legitimately set it to the side. Every morning, right? If you have that goal statement or that statement that's written in the present tense, when we read it, if we're not feeling the emotion, feeling the feeling we want to feel when we have the thing, we got to keep playing with the words in it. So maybe the words in it or what we did to get here is less important than how we're describing being here, right? And what here looks like, what here feels like. So that when we read it, we're connecting to that feeling so that when that feeling shows up in another moment of our day, we're like, oh, that's familiar. That's the thing, right? And we can go in that direction. Does that
Yeah,
make
and
sense?
and figure out how to make yourself feel more of that. What will
Yep.
make you feel more of that? So I think when you connect to a feeling, it's like the picture versus the words, right?
Hmm.
When you connect to the feeling you want to feel, I love the way you say, recognize when something happens in your day that makes you feel that way. So I want to feel joy in my work. I'm in a corporate job. I want to feel joy in my work. And you don't feel the joy in your work. But at lunch, you get to have, share time with a very good friend of yours, and you're laughing and you're having a great time and you're experiencing joy. So how do you get more of that now
Hmm.
in the work
And
you do?
maybe it's about saying, well, that joy doesn't come from this work because this work is about somebody else's joy.
That's exactly
Right?
right.
So
That's right.
then it can become a question of, well, what
What do I
maybe
need
there's
to do?
other work. Right.
Right.
Maybe
What
there's
do I
other
need
work.
to do to feel that in the work I do? That's the work I do with my clients because when you don't feel that, when you don't feel fulfilled by the work you do, it can feel like a soul sucking experience.
I remember when I started my business on the side, it was all of a sudden like it's something else I was excited about. I had something more going on in my life. So then all the drama at my day job happened around me rather than to me. So
Mm,
even though nothing actually had changed about the work I was doing at my job, by having other work that did fulfill me, it shifted my relationship to the work at my job.
yeah. So it could be, you could start thinking about that as a means to an end, right? It's not the be all and end all. It's not forever. It's the path through which you will get to where you want to be.
Yep.
Yeah,
And maybe, right? Maybe it's also about saying, why does all my joy in my life have to come from my work? Right? Maybe we have some expectations sometimes. Like, I think it's a lot of pressure to say that our work has to be what feeds our soul, what feeds, our mind, what feeds our, right? All of these things. Like, imagine we don't have one friend and expect that person to meet every need, right? There are
no,
some friends that are great for the movies and some
yeah,
friends that are the ones that you're going to tell everything to. And we
yeah.
can take that approach with other areas of our life too and say, maybe right now, this job isn't the source of that for me. Recognizing it for what it is, because we'll only continue to feel disappointed when we have unmet expectations and unmet needs from that
That's
thing.
true. That is true. However, we spend one third of our waking hours at work, and if it is a total energy drain,
Totally.
and so I understand what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. We feel disappointed when we have expectations that about the work that are
Mhm.
unmet. So we have to shift our expectations, expect less, or we could change what we do so
Yeah.
that it doesn't drain our energy.
And
So,
I think it's not an either or. I
no,
think it's an and. I think
right.
right, and I feel like that's a piece of also what sets a lot of us up. When I made the decision in leaving my full-time job to not get the next full-time job and
Right.
to go, both feet into my business, it had been 12 years of building my business on the side. And even when I did that, I was like, well, we're going to see how long this lasts. Okay, we're 3.5 years later, but we're
Yeah.
going to see how long this lasts. Because again, I could change my mind. I can make a different
Yep.
choice at any given moment.
Right.
But I think we can also set ourselves up for frustration when we choose the next thing and we have all the expectations on our next thing too. Right. And so it's
Yeah.
really about an ebb and a flow and a process, always sort of like that bob and weave of like, what am I experiencing? How is this working? What's the next shift? And again, I think just going back to the vision board thing, a lot of times those shifts aren't there. The small steps that get us there.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think so often we create vision boards, and we're told that the benefit of doing that, putting words and pictures on paper or on a board, if you look at it every day, that the opportunity for it to manifest is greater. And I think it has everything to do with how you look at it and how
Exactly.
you feel about what you're looking at. All right, I want to before we have to wrap here, I want to get to a question I have for you. In your work, you talk about taking the Venn diagram, the two circles that meet in the middle, and have a common section. That Venn diagram of life, and making it a single circle to help us find joy and peace and achieve our dreams. I want to hear more about that. What does that mean, and how does it work?
Yeah. So uh, I'm a health coach. If I've heard it once, I've heard it a million times. I would like to do that, but it takes a lot. And I have kids who need to go to practice, or, I don't have the time, or, right. Or if I do that, it takes away from this. We feel like there's this Venn diagram of, our work commitments, our family commitments, maybe a social life, maybe kids, right? We have all these things, and we feel like we're pulled in a million directions. Like we're this little person in the middle of the Venn diagram, and we have, like an octopus with a million arms pulled every direction. And we're sitting here ready to pull our hair out, right? Everything feels overwhelming. So, what I encourage people to do is to think about not so much that it's a Venn diagram, but that it's all one circle. And the time that we take to make sure that we're eating nutrition actually supports what it is that our kids need and what it is that our friends need, right? It actually supports all the other things in our lives rather than taking away from it. Because if we find time to get our activity in, then we're not necessarily feeling like we're going to pull our hair out when we show up to do homework with our kids, or when we leave a day job and go to work on our business. It's if we look at all of it as feeding each other, right? Everything we do supports everything we're doing. I think there's a lot less stress. It's a lot easier to find the time for all of the things because it doesn't feel like a trade-off, right? Everything we're doing is feeding everything else that we want to be doing, rather than saying we're limited.
Yeah, we can only do so much. Yeah. And I as I picture this, I'm very visual. So as I picture this one circle, I'm in the middle of it, and everything I choose to do for myself, with others, is contributes to how I who I am and how I am,
Yes,
so that it comes right down to taking care of yourself first in every aspect of that, so that you can be who you need to be and be able to give what you want to give to everybody else.
exactly.
Okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense. Not easy to do. based
It's
on
part of our
the
work.
fact
Yeah.
that, right? So, we all have work to do, but what we don't change, we choose.
Exactly.
So we need to, if there's something that's not feeling right to us, we need to think about and look at what do we want to feel instead, and how do we make that happen?
Exactly. I think, we design our lives by design or by
Yeah,
default.
right, right.
And so
Absolutely.
where are the pieces that are by default and you're going, "Wait, nope, hold on. Let's rewrite
Yeah,
this."
yeah,
That's the work.
yeah. Yep. That's the work. Right. All right. So we end every episode of this show, Tips for the Transition. We call it that for a reason, because I want to ask you, what practical tips and strategies can you leave for our audience as a takeaway today, Jen?
Absolutely. So, number 1, right, aligned with what we've been talking about today, I think go back to the vision board, the dream board, and first connect to why we put that photo there. What was the emotion, the feeling, the thing that we were really going for with that photo? And then look for where that's already showing up.
Okay.
Where does that already exist? Every
Okay.
day. Yeah, so that's number 1.
That's number
Maybe
one.
number 2, right? There's sort of 2 things in there. Every day before you go to bed, and I like it before bed for a reason, 5 things you're grateful for that day. And in particular, 5, because 1 or 2 is easy, right? 5 forces us to look at some of the little things, to recognize the moments that showed up that felt like what we're looking for in our lives. So sometimes for me, it's like I didn't have to go outside when it was raining, right? That's me living my life on my terms and my schedule, because when I worked for somebody else and it was raining and there was somewhere to be, I had to go. Right? So
Yeah.
next is your
Absolutely.
gratitude journal. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. You're right. More than 2 or 3, it really makes you think about, what are some, and I love the idea of thinking about the things that make made you feel the way you want to feel. If you want to
Mhm.
feel, if you want that sense of independence and freedom, what made you feel that way? What happened today that made you feel that way? When you start thinking about those things, then you feel like you're there. You've got what you say you want in some small way. And if you've got it in some small way, you can get it in a bigger way.
Absolutely.
I love that. Last one.
Last one is to focus on the law of giving and receiving, right? Cause and effect. So, what are we looking for? What do we want more of? And how can we start to give that, right? If we want to be earning more from our clients, how can we pay people quickly, pay people their full rate, make a donation, donate our time, think about other people, right? If we're looking for generosity, let's give generosity. Right. And by the way, that could just be, your intention and your love and your energy to the people around you. Right. It doesn't always have to be financial, but
Yeah,
thinking about what it is that we're looking to receive and giving that and creating that first.
I love that. That's such a great tip to end on. Yeah. What is it you want? Be sure to give it before you get it. Yeah. Love that.
That is actual manifestation, by the way.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Oh, Jen, this conversation went in a different direction than I expected, and I love what you've shared with us. I hope that our audience has picked up on some great tips from you. I'm sure they have. So, for those who want to connect with you directly, what's the one best way for them to do that?
all social media. I am at Jenn Trepeck, JENN TREPECK. Of course, the website is there, asaladwithasideofries.com.
I love that. A salad with a side of fries. I love that. From a health coach. I love that. That is really great. Jenn, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your taking the time out of your precious schedule. I know how busy you are. And we just loved, I loved having this conversation with you.
Well, likewise, me too. Thank you. And thank you for all you're creating here for everybody.
Oh, you're so welcome. It is my pleasure. Truly, truly, it's my honor. And for those of you in our audience today, I want to thank you for being a part of our community. So be sure, if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a comment or a review in wherever you're watching in the comment section. If there's a star rating, give us a star. And as I said at the top of the show, I love creating and sharing resources for professional women who feel stuck in their careers. So if something has you feeling stuck, let's continue the conversation because you could get a fresh perspective if you want it. You'll find all the links to learn how to connect with me and Jenn in the show notes below. And I invite you to continue the conversation in my private Facebook group called the Career Transition Roadmap. And the link for that is below as well. So let's meet again here next week, same time, same place, because you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's thrive together. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.